Welcome to 305 Cast, the Arsenal Miami podcast. I'm your host, John, coming to you from Miami, Florida. Wow, what a win. I'm so glad to be doing this podcast today because we won. We won the FA Cup. That's it. 14. We have the most again. Now we put some daylight between us and United as to who's won this trophy more times. And I just think it's great. And I think the manner that we won it is great too. And I think that it's hilarious that Chelsea fans are going around photoshopping pictures of Martinez holding the football outside the line just to suit this narrative that they have that allows them as a defense mechanism or rationalization or whatever it is to deal with the fact that Arsenal beat them. And we did. We beat them. 2-1. Two absolute incredible goals from Aubameyang, one of them being a penalty from Azpilicueta losing his mind after Aubameyang got on the wrong side of him. Another one, a little bit of burst of pace from Hector, flying through the midfield, getting the ball from Pepe to Aubameyang, and then just taking the defender on, who obviously was not Azpilicueta since he received a red card that everyone is complaining about being a soft yellow, and we can talk about whether it was a soft yellow, and I do with my guest today, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But look, we had a different defender in front of him this time. Aubameyang pushed him to his left, and then all of a sudden changed it up on him, and then what a absolute world-class finish from him right over the goalkeeper. I mean, there's no stopping that one. What a incredible finish from him. And forget it, I was just absolutely elated. I was jumping up and down all over the place. The game management was excellent. I thought there was a lot of cheeky little time wasting that was great. And look, I get that Chelsea might have been a bit unlucky with the injuries and stuff, but we mentioned it on previous podcasts. I think I was talking to Danny about it. We looked at the run-up of the games that we had versus what Chelsea had and the top four fight that they were going to be in, and the fact that they had to consider the upcoming Champions League game against Bayern. I think all that was weighing into their decisions, and I think that they were just overworked, and that happens in football. It was slightly unlucky with the injuries, but the fact that Chelsea fans are now going back and looking at all of the decisions and the reffing decisions, which, look, they might not have been perfect, but arguably, and we talk about this, me and my guest today, who, by the way, is Clair, for those wondering, and we have an excellent conversation about that aspect of it, and, they arguably should have been 10 men down right after the Aubameyang penalty. That probably should have been a red card if you look at the rules of the game and you consider where Azpilicueta was, where Aubameyang was, and the fact that Azpilicueta was the last defender. So, and he didn't even try to go for the ball. And you could debate that all you want, but in my eyes, they should have probably been down to 10 men there. Should have been a red card. My guest and I talk about that today. And look, all of that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we won the cup. We lifted it. Well, kind of. We dropped it slightly, but eventually lifted it. And that's it. That's it. 14 FA Cups. We are in Europe next season. That's it. No one's taking that away from us. We are FA Cup champions, and everyone is losing their minds over it. They cannot believe that we have done this. And I can as well, given the season that we've had. But I'm so happy we did. I'm so happy we did. We needed this so badly. You see, and I mentioned this in the podcast, and I also mentioned it on a little blurb I did for Tom over at the Gooner Talk in one of the articles that Drew wrote. Football allows us to kind of step outside of the everyday anxieties that we have. And when you consider the stress that life has thrown our way this year, and the fact that you can consider yourself fortunate if a football match is the biggest thing you have to worry about, even then, everyone has their daily life struggles and their anxieties and things that make them sad or unhappy, and certainly this entire season might have been one of them. But moments like this take us out of that, even if just for a moment. And that's what's so special about them, especially now in this world where we can't even hug each other. We need stuff like this. This is something that we need, and I understand why the Chelsea fans are as upset that they might normally be, because it might feel that they kind of needed this one. And look, they are already in Europe because they finished top four, so you could debate with them all you want whether they actually needed it, but you cannot debate that Arsenal didn't need it. We certainly did. Financially, I mentioned it on another podcast that I thought maybe initially being in Europe wouldn't be a great idea, but people's opinions change. I think that part of that might have been sour grapes and rationalization, and another part of it might just been not seeing the bigger picture and being too close-minded about it. But I think that when you're looking at how important keeping players like Aubameyang are, and even maybe a player like Ceballos, if we want to extend his loan, these kind of things, being able to play in Europe, being able to keep someone like Martinez, who, his story is absolutely fantastic, and a player that we have had for a long time, and would be a shame if he left now. All of that stuff is relevant when you're considering being in Europe, or rather, being in Europe is relevant when you're considering all that stuff, because it comes down to finances. It comes down to what you're going to be able to offer players, what kind of competitions and trophy opportunities are they going to have, because that's what these players want. It means a lot to them. Sure, money and everything like that, and living in a cool city, but being competitive on a sports level, being able to say, look, you're going to be in some great competitions, going to some interesting places. That's what they need. And I think that we're starting to see how important that is as Arsenal fans. Maybe we were a little bit elitist about it. I know I might have been at certain points, but I definitely saw, at least initially, the intrigue of the Europa League. But guess what? All of that doesn't really matter anymore, because we're there. We are in the Europa League. We're in Europe. It's important. We had an excellent win. No one's going to take that away from us. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest, Claire. We have an excellent conversation about Xhaka, about the game, about the players' performances, about the decisions, all of that stuff. And Spurs still haven't won a trophy. Ladies and gentlemen, Claire. Claire, how you doing?
I'm very well, thanks, John. How you doing? You okay?
Oh, doing good. How are you feeling about this?
I'm buzzing. Absolutely buzzing. Oh, I just woke up this morning and just had like oh my gosh, we won the FA Cup yesterday moment. First thing, because you obviously watched the game, and obviously it was amazing. I then went out for some dinner, had a couple of drinks, come home, still buzzing. And I woke up this morning and was like, yeah, that actually happened. It wasn't a dream. I didn't dream it. It happened. I watched it. I saw it. And delighted.
Yeah, so that's been getting me through the weekend. And then this other kind of simultaneous thought that how bad Frank Lampard's day is probably going today, which makes me feel a little good too, to be honest.
He looked super sad yesterday, didn't he? He was super sad.
It was great. It was great.
Yeah.
I loved every second. Giroud looked terrible too. Great.
Yep, he looked sad too. Yep. Good.
And look, Giroud, you could say what you want about him as a player and what he was, but like that comment he made after the Europa League final, I think it was a nice little schadenfreude that, seeing him upset there. And he had something written on his shirt that he couldn't even, he was expecting to score against us and was going to take his shirt off and show that whatever underneath probably, but didn't get a chance, did he?
Yeah, no, definitely. And there were other people as well. So I watched on the BBC, and Ashley Cole was looking very sad at the end of the game. So it's wonderful watching people look sad who really wanted Chelsea to win, definitely.
Yeah, when that penalty went in, there was this good shot of Ian Wright kind of like jumping up and down right in front of Ashley Cole.
Yeah.
And Ashley Cole just looks like he wants to go home.
Yeah, he looks away as if like, oh dear. Like you can see him, it's just, absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess let's start by talking about the actual game itself. And then I want to definitely talk more about the reactions and the effect of this and all of that good stuff, because I think there's a lot to be said. I definitely wanted to bask kind of in the game yesterday in the win and not overanalyze it.
Mm-hmm.
But now that, you're starting to see all the content coming out and people talking about it and all the stat people doing their things, some interesting things are coming out. Let's talk about the start of the game. It looked, when we started, first of all, it seemed as though we had an interesting chance going down that left-hand side with Maitland-Niles. But then again, there was another little of a nervy moment where it looks like Xhaka lost the ball in the first half, and then Mount, I think it was, kind of drove it and took a pretty decent shot that forced Emmy to take a save there.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of how we started and how we lined up, do you think that it's kind of weird even talking about the lineup considering we won, right?
Yeah.
And I think most people agree that the lineup was pretty almost, reasonably expected. Maybe without Saka versus Maitland-Niles. But in terms of how we started the game itself, how do you think we did?
Yeah, I think it was a shame to go behind as quick as we did. As soon into the game as we did, because actually I think that, but in some ways, in hindsight, having won it, actually that almost gave us an impetus to really push forward. Like we got to the point of nothing to lose really quite early on in that first half, where we had to score. Like we couldn't just. So in some ways, I feel like we did. Conceding that goal was a bit of a shock, but actually what we didn't do is react in the way that we've seen Arsenal react before, which is heads down, concede again, look really panicked. We just looked controlled after that, and we looked like, right, if we carry on playing our game, then we'll have our own chances and we'll have an opportunity to score.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good way of putting it, because I'm going to be honest, as much as I believed that, there was no way to convince me of that during the match. Like, there's been so much programming that has gone into me as an Arsenal fan that once we go down, it was like this floodgate of like gloom and doom, and like watching them lift the trophy. I can't control it. It was like some kind of like schizophrenic episode, which was, I guess appropriate given that this was the heads up FA Cup competition. So look, I think that when you tone back kind of the excitement of it, because I had to watch the game again afterwards because I was so like caught up in it. I think you're absolutely right in terms of how, we definitely kind of stepped back off the gas a little bit, regrouped, and then reapplied a different approach to the game. With that being said, I've noticed, like looking back at the season, do you think that these little water breaks that we have are helping, especially a coach like Arteta? I think they're like timeouts, like in American sports, you get like timeout, let's regroup and rethink. I think those have benefited us more maybe than a lot of other teams.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I think it's like, I don't want them as part of the game, right? Because I don't think they're a necessity in football. I think they've put them in because they're worried about the heat. But actually, yesterday there was no need for the water breaks for rehydration purposes. But actually, as a strategic timeout and as a regroup, and if you saw the players during those, if you saw the difference between Arteta and the players and Lampard and his players in those timeouts, Arteta was talking and they were all gathered around, they were all listening, they were all paying attention. I saw a couple of shots where Arteta was talking and David Luiz is shaking his head, and then talking to other people about what Arteta said. And when you watch the Chelsea players, they're all off having a drink, they're wandering around, they're not even like standing together. So he gathers them round, like you say, in an actual timeout, a strategic timeout that says, right, this is the plan for the next half of this half. And I think we are really benefiting from those.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring that up because that's one of the talking points I was going to have today. And just to kind of highlight and expound on that a little bit, in the beginning, both managers were like, the first water break, both managers were doing almost the exact same thing. And I remember thinking like, oh, it's interesting. I wonder if they can like hear each other's plans and stuff that they're yelling. But everyone was so engrossed in what each manager were doing. But then in the second half, in the second water break, the Chelsea players were despondent. Lampard was not even talking. It was clear they did not know what to do. They did not have a game plan for this and how to get back into this, which I think says a lot about Arteta and how he definitely thought, okay, if we go down early, this is what we have to do, because it wasn't like running around aimlessly like we've seen before. And that says a lot, not just for Arteta as a manager to be able to say, okay, players, this is what happens when you go down, but to be able to instill that in the environment of a cup final against such a big side like Chelsea, and to have the players actually be able to respond to that in a way that effectuates the game plan, that allows you to win the game, I think is spectacular.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. And I think, and the fact you're right, and the fact that he can say to the players that if we go down, it doesn't matter, because our game plan, I'm that confident in our game plan, we will create opportunities for ourselves to score. And that is the big thing for me, is that there was no panicking. There was no, we didn't, Chelsea's goal actually was a well-worked goal, and they had a little bit of luck of just how it came off the Chelsea player's foot, like when he had control of it in the box. But actually, we didn't panic. After that, we actually didn't look fragile at the back. We took control of some of the possession. So absolutely, it's so good that the players on the pitch at that time are thinking, right, Arteta's given us this game plan and we've gone a goal down, but actually it doesn't matter. If we believe in this plan so like as much as Arteta does, then we know we'll get opportunities, and that is exactly what happened.
Yeah, and it came off obviously Giroud's little flick, and then Pulisic with some just incredible finishing. I mean, the player is absolutely incredible, and we'll get a little on to the luck that we might have had a little bit later on in terms of the injuries that Chelsea had. But I've mentioned it on this podcast and others before, kind of going into this match, why I thought they might have struggled physically with this, and it seemed to play out that way. But when you're looking at that goal, I'm not really sure, especially after 5 minutes, if you can really blame any one particular person for that. It was a well-worked goal, like you said. I think Giroud, we know he does those little flicks. That's like that's his thing, right?
Yeah.
And Pulisic has just been in such great form recently. So it's no surprise that they were able to get a goal. I think that obviously we would have liked to keep a clean sheet, and it would have been a lot less stress. But like you said, it created an impetus that I think allowed us to go forward and I think essentially dominate the game for good portions of it. In terms of a midfield battle, I thought it was interesting seeing how Ceballos was just all over the place again, and him and Xhaka just pulling the strings in the midfield. So what do you think about Ceballos' performance?
And so obviously Aubameyang gets man of the match, and I don't dispute that, and definitely the impact he's had on us winning the FA Cup is unbelievable with the goals that he scored. But actually, I think yesterday Ceballos was the best player on the pitch. Like, and that's fine to not get man of the match for that. But he was absolutely brilliant. He was, just working hard. Him and Xhaka have clearly in a really short space of time. If you think of the amount of time that Xhaka had out for his antics previously, but also the amount of time Ceballos has had out for injuries as well. Just the two of them work so well together, and they just really complement each other with the skills they've got. Like, we have got to keep that guy. Like, he has got to stay at this club.
Yeah. And you saw the passion, man. I mean, after the first goal, I don't know if you saw the video of him like slamming his fist against the ground. It was like, if you look at that out of context, there's so much emotion there. It's hard to tell whether he just scored a goal or an own goal.
Yeah.
That's how intense he was about it. And you're right, he was all over the place.
Yeah. But also that passion for a club that you've been loaned to. And essentially, I'm sure at the very beginning of this season, he was thinking to himself, this is an opportunity to show what I can do in the Premier League, either to Arsenal or to potentially another Premier League club, or certainly another club in Europe. And I think that's what for me is for just his entire contribution really to Arsenal this season. I know he's had a lot of injuries, but I just think has been absolutely brilliant. And to play like that as well. I mean, yes, it's a final, and I understand in a final, you do put everything into it, but actually, he doesn't know he doesn't know where he's going to be playing in 6 weeks' time, and he put all of that into a final. It's
interesting. He made some comments that I guess I was looking at on Reddit, and basically the quote goes, "Real Madrid have won the most important title, which is La Liga. I've spoken to Florentino Perez and Jose Angel Sanchez, and we're going to clarify my future after the City Madrid game. I want to be able to play at least 35 games. I don't see that happening. As good of a player as he is, when you're looking at this Real Madrid lineup, I don't anticipate that. So when you're looking at, clearly he has a desire to go back to Madrid. But I think when you consider what his expectations are for game time, and then what I think Arteta is going to be able to convince him his role is going to be here, which is absolutely central, I can't imagine us not getting some kind of a deal done for him.
I hope so. And I think, obviously, most people are talking about another loan. Right. I mean, it's fantastic. He's played so well, but he's going to be expensive now to buy, which is a challenge. But, a loan with the potential to buy maybe after another season would be good. I agree. He's not going to get 35 games at Real Madrid. That is where he wants to play, but actually maybe there still needs to be some more changes there before he's going to get the game time he deserves. Even if you watch some of the videos that Arsenal posted from afterwards, Arteta walks into the changing room with the FA Cup, and they're all dancing around, and he's one of them. He's part of that group. He's integrated so quickly into this team, which I just think is brilliant. And I think we've seen it before with other players that maybe, Torreira is a good example, where players just don't seem to have settled quite that quickly. And he has settled so quickly into a club that he's on loan at.
Yeah, and let's talk about another player in terms of their settling, who I thought actually had another great performance. Should have probably had a goal. Maitland-Niles was a bit offside. Obviously, talking about Pepe, I thought that he had an excellent performance. There was some really tricky stuff that he did. Nutmegged a couple players, which was pretty funny. Obviously, had an assist and would have scored an absolute incredible goal. That would have, I mean, that would have been amazing. That one.
Yeah.
Maitland-Niles just a little offside for that one, which was a shame, but couldn't have finished it any better. What did you think of Pepe's performance?
I thought it was good. I think quite a lot of the play went down the other side, so quite a lot of the play went down the left.
Right.
So I guess we saw a lot more from the left-hand side than we did the right. But I don't think that meant that, Pepe obviously either had a bad game or didn't contribute, because obviously he did, and like you say, he got an assist. I think that right-hand side was quieter. We seemed to put a lot more down the left. With Maitland-Niles there. But actually, I think he had a great game. I think that goal would have been outstanding had it stood. I mean, it was the right decision. It was offside. But I think he made a good contribution. I think, he is one of the players that maybe hasn't, not necessarily as settled, but maybe probably hasn't adapted to the Premier League quite as quickly as someone like Ceballos has. But, we just need to give it time. It's only been a season. And it's also been a season with the sacking of a bit of a manager in Freddie for a bit, Arteta coming in and wanting to, take time to understand the players and put his stamp on things, plus coronavirus in the middle of a season, which no one can ever predict. So really, if you think about, Pepe and what he's done this season, I think it's been okay.
Yeah, and look, he has contributed. He's played a total of it looks like 42 games. It looks like he has 8 goals and 10 assists. I mean, for your first season, especially given the tumultuous start that we've had across all competitions, that's a pretty decent number, especially considering, we've switched up the right back. It was Bellerin, then it was Ainley Maitland-Niles, then it was Suarez, and those would be interchangeable. It was mostly Bellerin, but when you're looking at what he's done and when you consider it's his first season here, and now in his first season he's lifting a trophy, so you really can't really argue that. I noticed that Pepe's overrated. We paid too much for Pepe. I think those go away now for now. Yeah. Especially knowing that he helped us lift the trophy. It's kind of hard to say, you paid too much for him when he was a key piece in winning a trophy. Yeah,
absolutely. Had he been pulled off at half time, having had, not a great half, and then someone comes on and has an impact, in that same position, it'd have been different, but actually he didn't. And I think his contribution to this season has been, it's been good. It's been good. And I think you're right. People need to stop talking now about how much he's cost. And we just need to, move on to the next season and see how he does.
Exactly. Like, it's done. We paid for him. He helped us get a cup final. I'm pretty
he's
sure.
We're not selling him.
We're not selling him. If you said he's a young player, if you said at the beginning of the season, look, you're going to spend this much money on a winger, but he's going to help you get a cup final, we've been like, oh well, let's
great.
Great. So look, like you said, time will tell. We'll see how he does next season, and hopefully that he keeps making progress, which I can't imagine that he wouldn't under Arteta, considering the progress that these players have made under him. And one I want to talk about is, because I think at this point it's apt to talk about this overarching success story that is Granit Xhaka. Yeah. And I'll talk about it in a second. I want to, he just made a post on Instagram, which I thought was really, really good. And I'll mention exactly the quote that he says, the quote from Arteta, rather. But, if anyone's listened to me on Tom's podcast or anything, they'll know that I've been a big supporter of Xhaka, even when he wasn't, the most favorable person. I didn't like how he approached the situation, with the fans, but I could maybe see where he was coming from, given the stuff that was being said about his family and all that. But without getting into that, even though we should mention it just because it does form that entire arc, it's at least the beginning of it. You look at his time at this club from before even Emery got here, like to the last kind of days of Arsene Wenger. He was not being utilized, I would say, properly. He was being utilized as a defensive midfielder. He would make a lot of mistakes in that role. because I think that we were just kind of all over the place. And I remember that through Emery's tenure, those mistakes from the previous season were being used to slate him, being used to say, hey, Xhaka is not a good player. He's too mistake prone. He's not the midfielder that would, at that point, get us into the top 4, which is all we were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you look at his history being selected by all the teams that he's been on, when you look at when he's utilized properly with a midfielder that with another midfielder and with a defense that's a little bit more competent and sturdy, you can see, yes, you'll make mistakes like any player in the world, but when you add all of those factors with his leadership, which is such a big thing that everyone talks about, he's an invaluable player to that team, and I think he's shown that. And I want to just mention the quote real quick. He said, "What a season. With faith in yourself and this team, you can do anything. This trophy is very important for all of us, this whole club, but it's also for you who have supported us. Thank you." And what he posts is a picture of him taking his shirt off, his kid off at that one. We all know that situation, and then him smiling with the FA Cup. What have you made about this entire Xhaka arc?
It is the most incredible turnaround of a player who was completely down and out, really, in terms of the fans. I think he probably, out of everybody, and maybe because he's been at the club for a long time, out of everybody, he showed the frustration that a lot of the fans were having with Unai Emery and with the performances, and not necessarily just with the manager, but with the performances we were seeing, where time after time we were making mistakes and losing games that we shouldn't have done, but also just not putting in performances that as a fan base and the club that we could be proud of. And I think really his behaviour in terms of swearing at the fans was pure frustration for what I think what he was seeing happen to the club. And it's it wasn't really that long before Emery lost his job, Freddie took over for a little bit, and then Arteta came in. But I think one of the things that that Arteta has brought out of him is that leadership and that passion. You can see how much he cares about the players, about obviously his colleagues, but his fellow players, and just how much he cares about the club. Like, he's been around long enough now to know what Arsenal is about. Even things like the North London derby and some of those bigger, some of the games against the bigger teams. You can see that passion in him, and you can see previously when we've lost those bigger teams, but also then when we've won recently in terms of beating Liverpool and City recently as well. You can just see how much he really wants it, and I think we didn't see that before. So at the beginning of last season, when we were having that bad run, we didn't see that coming out of him, and I think Xhaka clearly needs a manager who can really, really get that out of him as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And while you were saying that, it made me think. It was clear that Emery saw that leadership as well, which is why he named him the captain, right?
Yeah.
And I think that might have been the worst thing Emery could have done, just because of where we were, the volatile nature of the situation that we were in, and where the fan base was, and what we were expecting and what we got. And then off the back of that, awful season and tumultuous, I keep using that adjective because I think it's the best way to describe what we were going through at that time. I don't think he did him any favors making him the captain, and but knowing that his leadership quality, I think that was a nod to his leadership quality, making him the captain. Now all of a sudden you turn around and realize, okay, well, look, that's still there. That's still there, but now you just have to utilize him properly in a team that's working properly. That was a sick team. And sick in the actual sense of being infirm, that it was actually, it was rotting from the inside out. It appeared. So I'm absolutely elated. I think he's an excellent player. I think he's an excellent leader. There's a reason why, he's so highly regarded. He leads his international team. He's a Swiss, he leads the Swiss side. Every team that he's been on, his leadership has been commended. So I think it's excellent to see that from him. I'm really happy for the player and ultimately for the team, because what benefits any single player here, whether you have a bias or like a player or don't like a player, Ozil, whoever it is, if that player is doing well and it's helping the team win, that's all that matters at the end of the day. Absolutely. Not whether you like the player, and put your pride aside for a second and appreciate it, which I'm seeing. I think the majority of Arsenal fans are getting behind him, which I like to see.
Yeah, I haven't seen too many people. I think people just need to understand the place that the team, like you say, and the club and Xhaka was in. When those in those negative situations that, no fan ever likes to see, in terms of someone react like that towards the club and the shirt. And, there was a lot of, he showed a lot of disrespect in the way that he acted as part of that. And, definitely, it doesn't really matter too much about throwing a t-shirt on the ground, but actually what that meant so much more than just throwing a t-shirt on the ground. It was around how he, disrespected the badge and the club and what Arsenal stands for. But I think you're absolutely right. If you think back to the situation we were in and the amount of pressure that was put on him as the captain, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure the players were probably also asking him questions about what's happening and, how can they make things better. And I'm sure he was getting it from, all angles, really, in terms of where the club and the team were at the time.
Yeah. And look, I think that we can appreciate that as far as deep-lying playmakers go, which I think is his best role. Mm-hmm. He's not like the best in the world, right? Like, we can all agree that Xhaka is not the best in the world, but I think that there's some, I don't like to use the word intangibles, but there's an intangible quality to Xhaka that I think helps, especially when we're down. And another player that and that's extremely important. And another player that has that, I think, is, and we've discussed this, is David Luiz, mm-hmm. which again had a very, I think, solid performance. Mm-hmm. And obviously looked like maybe a little, just got physically exhausted by the end and needed to come out. It wasn't because he did anything wrong. But what did you make of Luiz's performance, and then contextualize it with the rest of the season? Because look, he's made the most fouls leading to penalties than any defender in one single season. Mm-hmm. That's not good, right? But his ability to bounce back, this is kind of what I wanted to pose to you. First, how you viewed his performance overall, and then kind of a bigger overarching question is, in the face of the fact that we're in a rebuild right now, that we're having these young defenders come through, do you think that those negative aspects to his game are outweighed, A, by his ability to bounce back from them and get on with it, and B, what seems to be his this big impact that he has in the dressing room as a leader, which is what we're hearing, kind of in line with Xhaka in that mm-hmm. whole discussion. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, in relation to so in terms of the game, I thought he had a good game. I thought he was very solid. I think one of the things we need to really appreciate is the amount of players that have played in that back line this season, and the amount of different combinations we've had, because everyone has played like everywhere. And obviously he had Rob Holding alongside him yesterday, who I think also had a good game. Probably could have done a little bit better for Chelsea's goal, but teams are going to score goals, and there's sometimes not a lot you can do about it. Right. But no, I think he had a very solid game. I think I think the main reason that I think Arteta is keeping him for another year is the leadership and the attributes that he has around his leadership and his experience. He's won loads of stuff, and to be able to talk to young players about that feeling, and about the process of winning, and about how you contribute towards that. Yes, he is a defender that will make mistakes. Arsenal have had loads and loads of those in the past. That isn't really anything different. But actually, what he will provide going forwards to those younger players is that support, is that experience, is that the leadership qualities he provides, and that's why I think he's been given the extra 1 year, or the extra deal, because I think if we lost a player like that at this time, that is a lot of experience and a lot of winning mentality that will be just walking out the door. Right. We're probably going to lose some other players this season. I think previously we would have thought of someone like Mesut Ozil like that. He's also won lots. He's won the World Cup. He had lots of those attributes previously as well. If other players are also going to be walking out the door that have got that level of experience, we've got to keep some of them in there. Otherwise, we're going to lose that all in the space of a summer.
Yeah, and
that's what he's been kept for.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And not only that, I made a similar argument about Xhaka when he was here, and people were making those comments about his mistake proneness, whatever. And really, it went something like this. It went, I think at this point where we are in terms of our trajectory and what we're trying to accomplish and the means that we have and the financial situations that we're dealing with, and the kind of overall overhaul that this club is going through, I think a player who makes mistakes here and there is okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's okay. I think more important, if that player can come in here and teach these young players that you're going to make mistakes, but you need to bounce back,
Mm-hmm.
that is inherently more valuable right now than a player who doesn't do that, but maybe makes a little bit less mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, you're going to lose some games here and there, which none of us actually want to do. But if you can train these younger players to have that mentality in the long run,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to work out. And that doesn't mean that making mistakes is okay, because clearly I don't think anyone agrees that it's okay to make those mistakes. Ideally, you want to get those out of your game. But for the next year and what we have to do, and there's young players like Saliba coming through, I think that's more important.
Absolutely. And I think that's where, people like Rob Holding, if you think about the contribution that he's made over, if you just think about his last few years really as a player, it's been a little bit all over the place, and he'll need someone now that can, Rob Holding's played in some of those games where we've been absolutely trounced, yet he's also played in 2 FA Cup finals that we've won. So, his career's also had loads and loads of highs and lows. Same with someone like Callum Chambers. If we can keep these players and get those young defenders, like you say, working together, understanding the game plan, having that bounce back ability, hopefully we can stop seeing what we've seen a lot of, previously. And we still did see, as in some of Arsene Wenger's towards the end of Arsene Wenger's reign as well, is that conceding and your head dropping. And actually, we didn't see that yesterday. And a lot of that is around the mentality. It's around how you approach the game, how you react to the circumstances in the game. So Chelsea scored, and we didn't see any of that. And actually, that is what we need to make sure we instill in those players. And if David Luiz can contribute towards that, which I'm pretty sure he can, then they're the attributes that we need, coming from the manager and coming from the other players and the senior players as well.
Yeah, and look, we're talking about young players here. We got an excellent one at left back. Kieran Tierney, man. I love Kieran Tierney.
Yeah.
I absolutely love. I do not look. He does almost everything right, I feel, when he's playing. It's look. I was so sad to lose Nacho when Nacho left. Like, Monreal was one of my favorite players for Arsenal. One of our most consistent, definitely the most consistent player in the late Wenger era.
Yeah, definitely.
So to lose him was a big blow, in my opinion. But then to get a kid like Tierney to come in. And there's some interesting stats floating around, and I was telling you about them a little bit earlier. I'm just going to read it really quick. So apparently Kieran Tierney wins a trophy every 16.2 games. So 12 trophies in 194 games, which averages out to about one trophy every 16.2 games, which actually is going to increase, right? Because if we win the Community Shield, that could be very well another one that he wins in less than a month.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, look, obviously that's just kind of a funny correlation given, the circumstances that he's been around. But you can't deny that he's a solid player. And given his age, how excited are you to see this player? And I guess that's a little bit of a loaded question. But I would imagine you are excited, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what makes you excited about this player, and what do you see for him going forward?
I think what makes it exciting is he's almost perfect for the Premier League. He is what Premier League teams need in that position. So in a left back, someone that can, someone that's quick. Obviously, the fact that he's young is really good. Someone that's quite versatile, because obviously he's played as part of a 4, but also as part of a 5 or 3 in the wing backs, which I think is also really important. I think he has got some. I think he will also show over the next few years some great leadership qualities. He has adapted from the Scottish Premier League into our league so quickly as well. And again, also had some bad injuries in his first season with us, and so absolutely outstanding. And you can just see how passionate he is. Like I just love, and I know they all say that all they ever want to do is play football and they love it and they couldn't think of doing anything else. But the amount of passion that he shows as well is unreal. He just, you can just see how passionate it is and see how much he's enjoying his football. And I just love to see that. I think that's such a good thing to see. Yeah,
and one other thing I really like about him, and I think that he kind of goes into the heart of the the kind of blue collar worker. He keeps his head down. He's not this ostentatious. Like there's something to be said about how great Aubameyang is and how out there and his style and the craziness and all that. But I think that if there's a yin and yang in the squad, if Aubameyang is the yin, then I think Tierney is definitely the yang here, because he, even just walking into a game with like a Tesco bag,
Yeah.
And there was actually a funny, I don't know if you saw a picture with him and one of the coaches where they're stuffing the FA Cup in a plastic bag. Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, there's this really great picture, which I thought, so it's clearly that he's self-aware of that. And I think just personality-wise, that kind of I would say almost introvert. I think he appeals to a lot of fans. There's one thing to be the flashy footballer, but then just a kind of almost like normal guy that just playing football and living everyone's dream.
Yeah.
There's something endearing about that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something endearing about, working hard and making it. And I think people really respect that because they can see that you've put the time and effort into, in your trade, and you've worked really hard to get to where you are.
Yeah, and another player that was working exceptionally hard was Maitland-Niles, I think, this match. It started off with this, sending Azpilicueta for lunch at the byline, and then it didn't end up turning into anything. I think Aubameyang it was a little bit of a difficult angle, but the header was off. But it looked like, okay, is this how we're starting this? This sounds good. And from then on, there were a little bit of shaky moments, but I think overall he managed extremely well. And this is a player where there's been a lot of questions about his future here, right? And maybe his ability to, or not ability, because I think he's a very versatile player, but his desire to play in certain roles. I think that during this final, we got to see him in a role that might have been maybe more what he would like to do, being down the pitch a little bit more and effectuating the attack a little bit more. What did you think of his performance, and do you think that it's going to have any impact on his decision or the club's decision to keep him and move him on?
I think it sounds like the club have always been keen to keep him. In and around. It doesn't sound like they've ever been keen to let him go. I think the discussions around what position he plays in will probably be ongoing because he's still a young player. He's still developing. He's still got to hone those skills. I think one of the big things for me is to whether, like, long term, and it can change per game, and it has been definitely, is whether we play with a 3 or a 4, definitely, because he has played in the more traditional left back role, which I don't know that he is that keen on. But he also, obviously, his better position is he plays, in that left, kind of in the left wing back role, but bombing up and down the left hand side. One of the things he may be speaking to the club about, or trying to find out from Arteta is, what are the plans for his role and for the, tactically going forwards? Because if we do end up playing with a 4, is he someone that you then put on the left? I don't know that he is if you're playing with a 4, but right. Yeah. So I think a lot of it depends on, the conversation needs to be had about, where we see him playing long term, how many games he thinks he's going to get as part of the Arsenal team, and whether then that those two things marry up and that satisfies. I don't think the club want him to leave at all. I think they see him as a great player that is, like you say, versatile, and also does a job when asked kind of anywhere, in terms of like, play here. Oh, okay, no worries. Which I think is great for a young player. And I think his attitude seems to have changed a little bit from the Emery days, where he was coming out and saying, I don't want to play in that position, or I want to be playing somewhere different. He seems to, with Arteta, for Arteta to be saying, this is where I'd like you to play. And he says, oh yeah, okay, I'll do that. And you saw some of that, especially in the FA, when he played previously. There was a conversation between Arteta and Maitland-Niles at the end, where Arteta saying to him, thank you for doing that job that I asked you to do today. And you wonder whether getting that kind of response from the manager in return for doing a job that he may not
positive reinforcement.
The positive reinforcement of, this is what I asked you to do as part of this team, and you did it, and that is so good, and thank you very much. Whether then he thinks, oh, actually, this is a place I want to stay. I am happy to be versatile. I'm happy to play, in a variety of positions.
Right. Another player had an interesting performance was Bellerin. we saw some stuff from Bellerin in this final that we haven't seen in a while. There's a little burst of pace that he has, taking players on, which led to the second goal. I mean, the go ahead goal. So it'd be interesting to see kind of how he develops there as well. I think it's kind of hard to look at a win like that and point any problems that we had, which has been the kind of case for the last 3 games that this team has had. One thing we can maybe point to is Lacazette, because he again didn't score a goal, but
came very close with the free kick though.
It was about to say came fairly close with the free kick. I think that he gave those defenders a very difficult time. He wore them out a lot, and I think that he was there should have been a second defender there to clear the ball for Azpilicueta, but he wasn't because Lacazette pulled him out of position towards the midfield. And that's one of the things that we've talked about, what he can do very well. And look, he won. He scored against some big teams leading up to that. He was pivotal getting there. Is that enough to say the guy should stay, or do we still need to be considering a different option? I mean, what are your thoughts now? It's kind of hard to say we should consider that right now, considering we just won with him. But what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things when we first did your first podcast back a few weeks back, we were kind of talking about the fact what we hadn't seen from Lacazette is some of the attributes that we really liked previously: the working hard, the running around, the putting all the effort in, and we've seen that again over the last few weeks. So I don't know whether that he was carrying some kind of injury or whether he just wasn't fit again after the restart from the break, due to coronavirus, or whether he just wasn't, not necessarily to say up for it, because I don't know that ever is a player that isn't up for it, but what he's produced in the last few games is what we spoke about, that we wanted and we liked about him in the first place. And I think when he's making that kind of contribution, he's absolutely a valuable player that you want to have around. He isn't someone that you want to get rid of, because we know that he can do that. I think a lot of what we do with Lacazette depends on what happens with Aubameyang.
Yeah, and that's a good segue.
Because we can't lose them both. That's
right. Now, look, the man of the match, I mean, without a doubt, is Aubameyang. To win that penalty, obviously, it was just simple kind of ball over the top, but, Azpilicueta got on the wrong side of him.
That was the big thing. Getting ball side and forcing Azpilicueta to make that foul just through the positioning. So he's got control of the ball. He's in that position, and he's almost giving the ultimatum to the defender to say, "You bring me down, or you let me go for a one-on-one with your goalkeeper." And Aubameyang's probably like, "I don't mind which, because I'll probably score anyway. So you choose, where you want it."
And this is interesting because Azpilicueta is probably one of the best 1v1 defenders in the Premier League. And you could argue whether that's the case anymore given his age and everything, but in terms of experience and composure, he's usually pretty on point there. So to be able to do that to him particularly was very interesting. And look, we got the call. Excellent penalty.
Yep.
Excellent
very
penalty.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that
probably one of his best.
Sent him the other way. We saw him miss a penalty at Wembley against Spurs when they were living here. And we still have more trophies than them there. And we'll get into that the hilarious stats regarding our trophies and when the last time they won one. But look, to calm, collected, scored that. No way keeper saving it. Equalizes. Now it's 1-1. Different ball game. Now let's talk about that second goal, because it was So it starts interestingly, and then eventually Bellerin gets the ball, and then kind of what I was mentioning earlier, does that thing that we haven't seen him do a while, which is just kick the ball and make either you're going to foul me or I'm getting by you. And he's got he used to have the speed to do that. And it seems like he discovered it recently again. Maybe he was just like, screw it. It's an FA Cup final. I'm going to go all out.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what he was thinking in his head, but I think there was some questions over whether he had fouled who was it? I don't think so. I think he was just going for it, and I don't think there was a foul. Pepe kind of seemed to scoop it up, get it over to Aubameyang, who at this point Azpilicueta is gone, and we're going to talk about this. Who was it? Daniels? Was that? No. Who was the Daniels? Who was the whoever that defender was. I can't even think straight right now. But he pushed him off to the right and then dragged him off to his left onto his right side. And then to finish like that, that's a world-class finish. That is an absolute world-class finish.
With his left foot as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Unbelievable. When you watch that back, it gets better every time you see it, because what he does with that move to the right is the defender moves with him, and actually the defender then has got his feet in the wrong place to move back, because he's taken a big stride to the defender's left. So the defender's taken a big stride to his left, and then Aubameyang goes to his right, and he can't get back over. His weight's moved onto that foot. His feet are in the wrong place, and Aubameyang's through. And when you watch, I've watched it so many times, and it just gets better, because obviously what Aubameyang's doing is very clever. Obviously, it's very quick, and it's an absolute it's just world-class goal in terms of how he sets it up, but what he does to the defender. Because if the defender doesn't follow him, when Aubameyang moves to the right, the defender moves to the left. If the defender doesn't follow him, then he can stop Aubameyang taking that shot. But the fact that he makes the defender move and then he goes around him, it's just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and look, it was pretty funny when he dropped the cup too. I'm not going to lie.
Oh yeah, that was funny. But someone should have told him that you don't take the bottom bit. Leave the bottom bit where it is. Leave the bottom bit on the stand and just take the cup itself.
Right. What I think happened was, I think they said, "Hey, leave the stand" or something, but it said a word that sounded like that might have been misconstrued as "bring the stand" as well. I don't know. It was a little confusing, but I thought it was a kind of memorable moment.
Moment was Lacazette with his hand on his head, looking absolutely devastated that Aubameyang has just dropped the FA Cup onto the Wembley turf. It was
Look, it was. I think it was a perfect end to that. Just dropping the cup. I think it was great. And look, it was an excellent performance. I saw a stat that we had after the first 10 minutes, we kept Chelsea to just one shot on target or something, which is absolutely incredible. Look, whether we keep, you mentioned keeping Aubameyang or one of those two, and Arteta definitely seemed to be, the statements that he made, pretty sure that Aubameyang was going to stay. He was saying things like, he was like, sure, and Arsblog made a point about this, that in the past, you kind of get this overall aura around that. Everyone kind of knew if a player was leaving, right? Based on the things that they were saying and the way that everyone was feeling. But it seems different with Aubameyang. I hope that doesn't come back to bite me, because I think that we really need to stay. But are you confident that we're going to be able to get the deal done?
I really hope so. And I think one of the things that Arteta was saying, it's absolutely true, which was around, we needed to win that game to have any chance of keeping Aubameyang. So had we lost that game, I think it would absolutely be dead cert that he'd be out the door. And I think what Arteta was saying is that we need him to stay. I want to build the team around him, and hopefully what he's felt and experienced today, he can realise that he's going to be a key part of that. And that feeling of being part of a club, being part of a team, being the main man, obviously being a striker, but just being the captain. I think that's what Arteta was desperate to get out of yesterday's game and previous games as well. But this is a final. This is winning a trophy. This is winning, the FA Cup at Wembley. This, doesn't, only one team get to do that every season. But I think what he was saying was around making Aubameyang feel like this is where he belongs. And it was absolutely essential for us to win that game yesterday to have any chance of doing that.
Yeah, and
and the European football bit definitely as well. That's another huge point. As part of it, that and maybe that I'm pretty sure they are part of the negotiations. You've got to win. We've got to win the FA Cup to guarantee Aubameyang gets European football, more chance of silverware. If you win Europa, you get into Champions League anyway. We need Aubameyang to have any chance of getting in the top 4 next season. So I just hope it's enough.
Yeah, and I thought a really funny comment that Arteta said to Aubameyang apparently was that he'll give him more experience in lifting trophies, which was
Yes, I did.
back
Yeah.
back to his little debacle that he had, which was ultimately
Yeah, like
hilarious.
he needs to have some more experience of lifting them, and then he won't drop them in future.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to bring up, because I think it definitely at least painted the blue side of London in their reaction to this game. They are real salty about this loss. The Chelsea fans are.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you've been following. I mean, they have gone, and I'm not going to end. We're not going to end it on a negative, even because this is actually, I think, a positive. They have even gone to the lengths of doctoring the picture of Emi Martinez holding the ball right at the line. It's so obviously right at the line. Not a handball or
Mhm.
handling the ball outside of the
Mhm.
goal. And they've doctored it, they've photoshopped it, and it's going around the internet. People saying that he should have been sent off for that.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's
Yeah.
so, I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I think that is, I hope that this match haunts them for years and years to come, and that they keep circling that picture around. Because just remember that it's fake, that they are
Yeah.
circulating a fake picture around to fit this narrative they have in their heads about what happened in that game in order to rationalize losing to us. That is golden. That is
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
That we can get in their heads like that. And there's some reasonable Chelsea fans out there, obviously.
Yeah, I've
but
got a couple of Chelsea fan friends, and one of the guys at work today said that they felt really not hard. So they felt hard done by the red card, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, okay, but if you want a yellow, you're giving the ref a decision to make.
I actually want to talk about that really quick, because you bring up a good point. So this red, yes, I think the second yellow might have been extremely harsh for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
But arguably, Chelsea should have already been down to 10 men. If you look at what Azpilicueta did,
Mm-hmm.
by the rules of the game, that he didn't make any attempt at the ball, and he just pulled the player down the box. If you look at the actual letter of the law, that's not a yellow card.
No, and actually, one of the things that a lot of the commentators kept saying was that, but he wasn't the last man because the other defender was coming up alongside him. But actually, what I was saying when I was watching it, and I've watched it loads of times, I've watched the whole lot loads of times, but like one of the things is, if had Azpilicueta not pulled Aubameyang down, then so that slowed the play. So Azpilicueta pulling Aubameyang slowed the play, which meant that defender had time to catch up,
right.
and therefore there was an additional player who may have prevented the goal, and that's what people are saying, that because he wasn't the last man, because the other guy was there, that actually it's not a red card, it's a yellow card. But actually, if the foul wasn't made, Aubameyang would have been one-on-one with the keeper, and
Exactly.
Azpilicueta would have been the last man, and he only caught up because he slowed him down by fouling him.
Right. So you don't get to you don't get to justify a yellow by saying that the foul made it less worse than it actually was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But for him fouling, it allowed the player, because he fouled him, it allowed the player to get the defender to get somewhat
to catch up.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So now you're going, oh well, look, that player. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So look, I don't have any sympathy for that. I think that there were some interesting decisions, but I think this is one of the things that Arteta is doing, is he's instilling this way of being smarter about our fouls, which is something that we haven't done in a long time. Like, fouling is part of the game.
Yeah.
It's just how you do it. You don't drag a player down in the box.
Yeah. Well, you do if you're David Luiz, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to say it, but
you were thinking it. Yeah.
Fair.
I think
But
the thing is, though, about Kovacic is that if you're on a yellow card, so don't give the referee an opportunity, or don't give the referee the decision to make about giving you a second yellow. So yes, I think the second yellow probably was harsh and probably wasn't a yellow card. I don't think Xhaka really made that much of a big deal about it. There was some contact. He fell over. He didn't really go rolling around the way we have seen Xhaka do previously.
Yeah.
But don't give the referee the decision to make, because you've always then got a chance of being on the wrong side of the decision. And so okay, it was a little bit harsh, but you've done something that makes the referee think in their mind, was that enough for a second yellow, and therefore should the player be sent off? They were, I think the other thing that my the guy at work said was that they got really unlucky with the injuries, which they did, but Arsenal have been in exactly the same position previously. So, we've seen that from an Arsenal point of view time and time and time again. And so, tough, really.
And it's something that I predicted. I mean, leading in this, we mentioned it earlier in the podcast, but one of the things we were looking at before is looking at the run of games that we had coming into this fixture. I mean, we were not in a top 4 fight. Arguably, we were trying to get into Europe, but when you look at the fixtures that we had leading up to this match compared to the ones that they had leading up to this match, I mean, you can't compare the two. I mean, they had to play Liverpool. They had to, I forget exactly the ones that they had to play leading up to it, but I mentioned if you want to go back and you can listen to the other podcast, I also talked about it with Danny from Birkham Wonderland on the previous podcast, like looking at where they are and physically and what they had to do to get to where they are. I think that takes a big toll on them. And one thing that we've been actually fairly lucky with, at least towards the end of the season, is the injuries. And you hit the nail on the head here. It's something that we've seen as Arsenal fans all the time. That being said, I don't think we've ever seen it in an FA Cup final. So I could definitely see why maybe Chelsea fans can use it as some kind of a defense mechanism to why they lost this match, right?
Yeah, but even, I mean, okay, no one predicted how good Martinez was going to be, but actually we have lost our first choice keeper, towards the beginning of this period of football. Okay, he's not the best defender in the world, absolutely not. But actually, people would argue we also did lose in Mustafi, one of our better defenders, who actually has made a huge improvement with Arteta as manager as well. So actually, we did lose 2 almost first pick players, ahead of this game as well. So we didn't get injuries in the game, but we have had injuries previous to the game, that have had an impact. But we just, we didn't know how good Martinez was going to be, and that, no one would really miss Leno.
Right. And, well, I miss Leno, but not like in the sense that, that we're not. I think I do miss Leno, just because I think that he's a great keeper, and obviously it's hard to kind of say I miss him now, given just how wholesome Martinez is, and seeing him cry during that interview, and and his story about being 16 years old. I mean, he just that was really emotional, and you could see how much it meant to him. And he's been such a loyal servant to this club, being happy to just do what he has to do, waiting for his time to shine, and he absolutely did. And to be able to pick that, I think that's the biggest story of this FA Cup is Martinez. Who would have thought? What a crazy season this has been. And thinking about how it ended on that note with him specifically, that's why I'm saying, do I miss Leno? I miss Leno.
I miss Leno, but I love Martinez's story more. And I guess that's the difference. I think the story that has come with him, being, getting into the team, playing every game, I just think has been absolutely incredible. So, and we have players like that. If you think about, Per Mertesacker came back and played the FA Cup final. Had not played for ages. Everyone thought it was the craziest decision Arsene Wenger has ever made in his entire life. Yet he had an absolutely outstanding game. Our FA Cup, definitely in the semi-finals and the finals, we have had players that have absolutely turned around our FA Cup. Aaron Ramsey is another one. Martinez is a great story. Per Mertesacker, it's just something with Arsenal and the FA Cup is just, and our players. And I miss Leno, but I love the stories.
Yeah, his story is so incredible, and just the emotion that he had. And there's this picture of him in the bus, like hugging the trophy.
Yeah,
I know it's like someone just immediately started cutting onions, and I'm telling you, that was such a great picture, and it meant so. I could just see what that winning this trophy meant to him. And it's almost that's how I would feel with that trophy if I had won it, right? For the club.
Yeah.
That is that I would not let anyone touch it. It would just be sitting with me on the bus. But look, I think that the coach and the team and the board, everyone has a decision to make next season with Martinez and Leno. Do you think that? How do you think that's going to play out? It's going to be a difficult decision for Arteta. I think right now Martinez plays. And Leno's going to take a little bit to get back into fitness. He either needs to play absolutely perfectly, and while Martinez continues his his progression. If we don't sell him, which could be a possibility, assuming that doesn't happen though, I don't see how Martinez is not the starting keeper in the season next year.
I mean, I think there's a couple of things. I think if you get an unbelievable offer for either of them, then I think you have to take it at this stage, because I think at the moment the club, we need, it'd be good to, we kind of need the money in the bank to be able to strengthen other areas. We've realised now we've got two absolutely top class keepers, and it is great to have two, but that is an absolute luxury that at the moment we may not be able to pursue and continue with if the money's right. I think the fact that we won the FA Cup yesterday will guarantee, so if there is a first team keeper, it's been a bit of an Arsenal tradition, but actually it does offer more opportunities for the other keeper to play in the European games. Had we not won the FA Cup and we didn't have any European football at all, it's quite difficult to have that conversation with a second choice keeper about how many games they're going to get. So actually the fact that we have got the opportunity now to offer more games to either Martinez or Leno, but also give them the opportunity to really fight it out in the Premier League and also in the cup competitions, I think that would have been a much harder conversation to have without European football. I think I agree with you though. I think the Community Shield, I think Martinez has got to start, because he essentially is part of the reason that got us there in the first place. We've had 3 FA Cup games since the return of football. So he plays in the Community Shield as far as I'm concerned, or whatever it's called now. But I think, and then I think at the beginning of next season, Arteta's got a big decision to make.
No, I think, you kind of changed my mind almost a little bit there as you explained that, because you're right. I think that there's going to be a good argument to be made, and a good compelling one to be made about one of them, either Leno or Martinez, taking either the Premier League or the cup competition spot. Now that we're going to be in Europe, I think that is a big card to have in our deck in terms of a negotiation standpoint, because I think the ideal world, we keep both of them. I would love that issue that we don't know. We have 2 excellent keepers that are in great form, and we don't know which one to play for what.
Yeah.
That is a great problem to have. And you've mentioned previously that it's also that they have different abilities and different strengths and weaknesses that you can use in different scenarios, which is also something unique that we haven't had in a long time.
And actually, that's so very unique that almost no club has.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I think it's that, Chelsea seem to have a shed load of keepers, but they don't seem to want to keep, or none of them seem to be good enough. I think, no club really has that. And I don't really know if a manager, or if the keeper position is ever a position that managers consider to change strategically, but it gives us an option if we wanted to, depending on what kind of formation we want to play. If you want to play 4 at the back, if you want to play 3 at the back, how you want to set up. So, I don't know that managers think maybe enough think as much as they should maybe about that, but then maybe they've never really been in a position to have that opportunity.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if you can utilize that in some way. So we'll see. I think it was great. I obviously love Martinez. I'm going to get his name on the back of that black shirt. I'm going to do it. Yeah. Because that black kid is so sick.
Yeah.
And I really, and, I was thinking I'm definitely going to get it. And now, just seeing the emotional side of it, I'll never forget that image of him holding the cup. Yeah. No matter where he plays, if he leaves, if he stays. I mean, and that win was so meaningful to us as a club, and it was exemplified in him and his performance, in what he's done since he's, just got in, and it's just really incredible. It's such a great story, like you said. I love Leno, but obviously I have that little bit of a German bias there, but I think that it's just absolutely wonderful. So yeah, he's going on the back of a shirt for sure. In terms of overall, because I think we've touched on pretty much most of the big highlights and things that were going on in this match, but what did this win mean for you? I know it's a big, broad question, and if there's a big, broad answer, by all means, the floor is yours. But I really want to know what this win meant to you.
Like I said this to my mum yesterday. She's obviously a massive Arsenal fan. We sat at hers and watched the game, socially distanced, either ends of the living room. It puts daylight between us and Man United. So we've won 13 FA. So we've now won 14 FA Cups. We'd won 3. Obviously until yesterday, we'd won 13. Yeah, they've won 12. We were 1 ahead. So by getting the 13th, we were we were ahead of them. We were the first team to win 13. We'd got there before them, all that kind of stuff. This now put daylight between us and them. And that's, like, for me, that is, I mean, it is so unusual for to have a team. I mean, okay, Man United have won a lot of FA Cups too, but like FA Cups just seems to be our thing. And I think, it puts daylight now between us and Man United. We are the reigning champions of the FA Cup. We've won it like 4 times in the last 7 years. I mean,
we've actually won 10% of all of the FA Cups.
I mean, that's just crazy. It's absolutely brilliant. And I think, that's really what it meant to me yesterday. And I just, absolutely brilliant. And for Arteta to lift the trophy, to see him lifting it as a captain, obviously a few years ago. The other thing for me from yesterday that is going to really hurt me for a long time is that I wasn't there. And not just me wasn't there. There were no fans there. There were media there who are fans, and they had, the fantastic opportunity for them to get the opportunity to go. But I've been to semi-final, final, and Community Shield for the last 3 times that we've won the FA Cup. I've seen 9 wins in a row at Wembley, and I wasn't there yesterday. And I think that is, no one can do anything about it. But we will always remember this one because, there were no fans there.
Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest tragedy of the season. But look, I think that when you consider the fact that this whole season has been extremely difficult, and it's been an absolute roller coaster, the fact that we were at least able to get some kind of joy out of it, I think is absolutely and completely wonderful. And look, this is why we watch the sport. This is why we're fans, right? These kind of moments, the narrative surrounding this whole thing. I mean, it was absolutely perfect. The rivalry between us and Chelsea, the story about Giroud and the last final we were in, and then that they maybe wanted to come back, and these 2 new managers and Arteta's first season, and then he used to be it was just so much, but also that was going into the narrative.
Yeah, and like even yesterday, he was saying afterwards, and they were saying about the season, and he said he's tired, and you think he actually had the the virus as well itself. And was relatively poorly with it for a couple of weeks. And you think,
right,
oh gosh, people talk about actually how long it takes to fully 100% get over a virus, like that. Some people have it, some people have it not so bad. Some people have it very, very seriously. And actually you forget that, that's kind of what he was the first person really in football to, especially in the Premier League, to be confirmed as to have it. And then obviously the City game gets cancelled. It's just, the whole story of the whole season has been absolutely one that we will never, ever forget.
And I guess a better way to end it than ever is just to drop some facts here that since Spurs last won a trophy, Arteta has joined Arsenal, won 2 FA Cups, retired, joined Manchester City, won 7 trophies, came to Arsenal as the new head coach, and just won another FA Cup after months in charge. That's great.
It's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. It's so
and in the process beat COVID. So look,
exactly.
I'm just saying. Here's what I agree with everything you said about. I think it's hard not to. I don't think anyone that's an Arsenal fan could disagree with what this FA Cup meant. One thing that for me that it meant was, and this is kind of a less emotional side of it and more of a just being a football fan side of it, it gave Arsenal fans some breathing room, right? If we had lost this after that season, after we've seen our rivals qualifying for Europe in their first seasons and stuff like that, it gave us the ability to kind of save face as fans, which is extremely important. And you could say as much as you want about Spurs and what they've done, or United and what Ole's done. He still hasn't won a trophy.
No,
he still hasn't won a trophy for them. You could say how good Lampard has made Chelsea and they got in the top 4. Still hasn't won a trophy. So look, it's important. Trophies. This is why we do it. I wrote a little column for or a little blurb for the Gooner Talk, the new blog column that they have, like articles and stuff, and they got a bunch of fans talking about what this meant. Football allows you to be dragged out of kind of the everyday anxieties of life, right? And sure, within football fandom, there are these moments, like these anxious, anxiety-driven, really low moments. But then there are these extremely blissful, wonderful moments that make this whole game worth watching, right? And I think yesterday was one of the latter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And almost like, I think you texted me earlier saying you still can't believe it. They give fans those, those kind of like wow moments and like the pinch yourself moments. And, when I woke up this morning and was like, we won the FA Cup yesterday. Like just, like nothing else really gives you that feeling. Like, nothing gives you that feeling like winning a trophy. Definitely.
It's true. And we did it again, and we've done it in this competition more than anyone. And that hopefully doesn't stays the same for a while and keeps going. So I think that is probably a better place than anywhere. We've gone a little longer than we usually do, but we just won an FA Cup final. So, deal with it. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
So I'm on Twitter at Clair Arsenal.
At Clair Arsenal. So as always, it's always a pleasure to have you on here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for asking me.
We're done. Another episode of 305 Cast, the Arsenal Miami podcast, is in the bag. I want to thank my guest Clair again for coming on the podcast today. You can find her at Clair Arsenal, She's been on here plenty of times, and it's great to talk to her after a win. I know that we were meshing each other before the game. I said, hey, you want to come do the FA Cup podcast? And she's like, yeah, hopefully it's a happy one. And it absolutely was. That's happy is an understatement. This was a wonderful, wonderful performance, a wonderful fight from the team, a wonderful reaction from the players and the manager and everyone around, and who knows what this does to spark anything going forward, but it certainly feels like a turning point for us. And whether that actually materializes, no one can predict the future, right? We can only see what it seemed to mean to these players and what we know logically it meant for this organization financially and just from a sports perspective. So hopefully that was a first step in a very, very wonderful, successful rebuild. That's all we can really say. And just elation, absolute elation that we won this wonderful, historic, beautiful tournament. And that's it. It's done. We won it. We've won it more times than anyone again. And long may it continue. As always, everyone, cheers. Welcome to AMP, No, stop it.